with the honourable hunger strikes, the hunger strike resistances started and led by Leyla Güven, which is on 147 days today, for an end to the isolation of the Kurdish people's leader Abdullah Ocalan, and also for a restart to the peace process for the Kurdish question in Turkey. And we are absolutely honoured to have the solidarity of Margaret Owen, who many of you know very well, who will be with us for 5 days on a solidarity hunger strike.
Leyla Güven, now on her 146th day, needs our solidarity desperately, as do the other, I think, over 7,000 other political prisoners in Turkey's abominable prisons are also on strike. And all over the world, I'm learning today, maybe 10,000 hunger strikers, mainly Kurdish people all over the world. And to my great sadness, I hear today that a 6th prisoner has just died in a Turkish prison. And yet, I'm sad, proud to be here, but also I am angry. I'm very angry and I'm very ashamed because there is barely anything. Here I am in London, reading the newspapers, listening to the news, turning on my television, listening to my radio, and there is the most shameful and scandalous silence about what is going on in Turkey. It isn't the torture and the isolation of Ocalan, as Leyla Güven has said, is also symbolic because it's about the torture of all the Kurdish people in Turkey and in Syria. He hasn't been allowed to see his lawyer since 2011, nor his family since 2015. Forget the 10-minute visit from his brother when we were there in January. And that is against all international laws. We talk a lot about the Mandela rules. The Mandela rules actually laid down as international rules the rights of all people who are prisoners. All people are in detention, and every prisoner has a right to be visited by his lawyer. It's extraordinary that Leyla Güven, who's actually is critically ill at this moment, this absolutely wonderful woman who's been, she's been in prison for over a year, since January of last year. And she was in prison because she was protesting about the atrocities that Turkey was perpetrating in Afrin. And nobody wants any of these prisoners to die. And it's up to our government and the international community now to be made aware of what is happening and stop appeasing this genocide that is going on in Turkey and stop selling arms in breach of our own obligations under the Arms Treaty, selling arms to a regime which is actually using arms against its own people. So we want the peace process to begin again in Turkey. And who must lead that peace process is Ocalan. And Ocalan cannot lead anything as long as he is in prison. So I am here in solidarity with all those thousands of people. And I feel rather ashamed that I'm not doing an indefinite hunger strike. I'm not doing it indefinitely. I'm only doing it for under a week. But I hope that by me doing it at my age, here as a British international human rights lawyer, that maybe we can get more publicity and we can lift the blanket of silence on the terrible things that are going on in Turkey and stop my government, the UK government, being blamed by history for being an accessory to a genocide. Thank you.
Beautiful and stirring words. I'm here to show solidarity with Margaret. I had the privilege and I think pleasure's the wrong word, to meet Leyla Güven when I went over on the peace delegation. And I'm just here to show solidarity and to ask our country to open its eyes, to not be complicit, and also for the Turkish government to please look at its own human rights abuses and look at its own laws and how it constantly violates them, and just to stand in solidarity with the Kurdish community. There's very little I feel I can do, but I just want my presence to be here and just to say my heart is with you all, and, you know, just so much love for your plight. So thank you.
Before I left for Rojava, that I first came across Margaret because my family were really worried that I was going to be traveling to a war zone and needed some reassurance. And because Margaret had been there before, I rang her to say, Margaret, can you give me some reassurance that I can pass on to my family? And she said, tell them I'm an 82-year-old woman at that time, and I feel much safer in Kamishlo than I do on Oxford Street. So I duly passed that on to my family, but I don't think they were that reassured by it. But I just want to say, I've come in praise, really, of Margaret, her courage, her determination, her dedication to the cause, your energy. I mean, it's just, I'm truly humbled. You're an amazing woman. And I think I've followed, I've followed your travels to Turkey. I've bumped into you at innumerable meetings, and you've always been full of energy. And I think to use your body, and not just you, but all the other people who are on hunger strike, to use your body as a political manifesto, to do violence to yourself by starving yourself of food for as many days as Leyla Guven has, and to fast unto death, I think it's a measure both of courage as well as desperation that we have not been able to raise the British government, the world media, the British media from their stupor, to be able to draw attention to the fact that Abdullah Ocalan's entering his 20th year of solitary confinement. And for what? For the dream of a new world, and not just for the Kurdish people, but I think for all of us. So I really think it's commendable that you're doing this. It's commendable and sad and tragic at the same time that there are all these people who might be heading towards their death because Erdogan is not listening. And I think the weaker he gets, the elections, Turkish elections, have fortunately shown that he's lost a few cities. But my anxiety is that the weaker he gets, the more brutal he is going to get towards the Kurdish people. So let's just hope that we can shift this somehow or the other. This is what the politics of solidarity looks like. So thank you.
I'm here to show my respect and solidarity to all the hunger strikers, and particularly Margaret Owen, making such an important message, passing on such an important message to a public that is largely asleep in this country. Can only think about things like Brexit, 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 while human rights atrocities are happening. So I think it's very important, the Kurdish community more generally, with the thousands of hunger strikers coming out of the amazing example spreading out from the Kurdish region in Turkey, across Europe, across the world, with their impressive will to struggle against the tyranny, these human rights atrocities, and not only against these things, but for something which is the alternative to this ecological catastrophe we have going on, which is the alternative to the endless wars, war after war after war, which is the alternative inspired by Abdullah Ocalan, the democratic and federal ideal. And so I think that this is what the Kurdish freedom movement is at the vanguard of a struggle for the future of humanity. And so I'm here to show my respect, first and foremost, for showing the way forward with this impressive will to struggle. And thank you, Margaret, for showing that some people in Britain are also taking note. Thank you.
We set this up in 2016, and we now have support from the British TUC and Scottish TUC. 14 different trade unions are affiliated, all of us demanding that Abdullah Ocalan be freed from prison to lead the peace negotiations, because that's ultimately what we are all for. We're for peace, we're for freedom, we're for democracy in Turkey. And trade unions worldwide, internationally, stand by those principles of democracy, freedom, justice and equality, which Ocalan teaches us is the answer to the problems which exist in Turkey. There is no resolution to the so-called Kurdish question except through democracy and peace, and that is what the Freedom for Ocalan campaign is all about. I'm extremely humbled to be here at a time when thousands of people are on hunger strike, as a symbol of their determination and the importance of Ocalan to their demand, their desire for peace and freedom.
Privilege for me to be here in solidarity, especially with Margaret, with Ali, Nahid and Mehmet, whom I had the privilege of welcoming to our church locally. I suppose over the years I've been so frustrated and angry and annoyed at the silence that is there. The silence is deafening. And I keep going on about the fact that the silence is partly, as we know, because the PKK are on the terrorist list. And so internationally, or in any situation, it is so convenient to be able to say we don't have to negotiate with terrorists. And so they can justify then the silence. I'm speaking as an Irishman, and I know from experience, when I came to work in this country from work in London in the early 70s, because I had an Irish accent, I was suspect, and I was also branded as a terrorist because I was supposedly supporting the IRA and Sinn Féin, and I was all sorts of different things. And so this branding then abdicates the necessity to recognize somebody who is struggling for justice. And so I am here in solidarity, knowing some of the background. And I suppose I'm almost jealous of the Kurdish people, knowing more Irish history than I do. And I would consider myself fairly well up on Irish history, but that's because of the identity of the two situations. So, yes, back to Margaret, I would like to presume that Margaret is a friend and colleague of mine. We've been campaigning together, and we've had some funny times together, and we've enjoyed each other's company, and I felt honoured to be a part and parcel of what Margaret is doing. And of course, we wish you well in this exercise. But again, as somebody has said, what a tragedy it is that one has to risk life and limb in order that human rights, that just the basic human rights are highlighted. And for Abdullah Ocalan, all we're looking for is just simple and basic human rights. Okay, we're campaigning, and I've been campaigning, as many others have been, for his freedom. But at this point, just for the removal of the isolation, and that the international laws which Turkey are breaking, that at least the international laws would be recognized, because they are denying their own laws. And so it's a complex situation, but we are here in solidarity, and I am proud to be part of it. And also keeping in mind, I feel I have an obligation, because I am parish priest here in St. John Vianney Parish, which is actually taking in this Kurdish centre. So you are part of our community, and I feel obliged, I feel it a privilege to be part of the whole movement, and I will continue supporting while there is a breath in my body. But I just feel so frustrated that I'm not able to do what I should be doing and what might be doing, but nonetheless we keep trying, and I've overstepped my time. Anyhow, so Great to be here with you. Thank you very much.
Powerful government has not succeeded to impose its whole will on the entire population. I think it is proof in Turkey that through the determined struggle of the Kurds on all levels, and I would include, in addition to the hunger strike, all the struggles that are taking place on every level, meaning to say from the people who actually lead the campaigns, from the people who organize it, from the people in prisons. It's the collective effort of everybody that has the effect of the Turkish government really a failure of the election. We are not going there and begging the Foreign Office. No, we have to demand it. We have to demand it through all the means possible at the same time. So that is the only way to understand this hunger strike. And in that sense, we can also understand the other people's struggles, because other people are in the same situation. It's just that they don't make the necessary connections. They don't see how connected the Kurdish struggle is with their own, except in some parts of the world. In Kenya, for example, we have people who see the connection, who feel the connection. We have even young people who are now out on the street and fighting environmental issues and say enough is enough. These are people 10, 12 years old. They can see the connections because the people have picked it up all over the world. And we know by a very, very, very serious experience in Rojava, in the middle of a war, when Kobane was victorious, how the people made connections from all parts of the world to say, yes, they have won. And how they support the Rojava revolution today, right from Nepal, from India, down to Latin America, to Afghanistan, and all parts of the world.
If every single one of us takes responsibility for being in solidarity with the hunger strikers, they are, Said, Ali, and Nahida are now on day 19. Imam, who is like a skeleton now, is heading towards day 150. Leyla Guven is apparently very, very critically ill, and she could be in hospital. But we can still do this. I really, truly believe that we can still do this. If we all use all our capacity, all our contacts, and really work 1,000, 10,000 times faster and 10,000 more intensity than we normally do, I know together we can honestly do this. Please, Margaret is here in solidarity, but don't leave it to Margaret. We are all also here in solidarity, and we pledge to the hunger strikers who are on day 19 that we will do absolutely every single thing that we can to put pressure on the Turkish government to begin regular visits of the legal lawyers of Abdullah Ocalan to Imrali Island. We can do this. We can break the isolation. Please, friends, all together, let's do it.
It has expressed solidarity to human rights lawyer Margaret Owen, who has joined thousands of Kurdish activists and political prisoners on hunger strike, calling for an end to the isolation of Kurdish political leader Abdullah Ocalan. And Francie said, thousands of Kurdish political prisoners and activists are on hunger strike in Turkish prisons and further afield, calling for an end to the isolation of imprisoned Kurdish political leader Abdullah Ocalan. Among those on hunger strike is Kurdish MP Leyla Guven, who is now in a critical condition, together with Imam Sis, who is currently on hunger strike in Newport, Wales. They are now being joined on hunger strike by veteran human rights lawyer Margaret Owen, who has been a long-time campaigner for the rights of the Kurdish people. The ongoing detention and isolation of Abdullah Ocalan is unjust and a violation of international law. His isolation must end in order to support efforts to make peace in an area. As Irish Republicans, we know the importance of international solidarity. In 1981, people across the world, including the Kurds, stood alongside the Irish hunger strikers, and that support was appreciated. Today, we are standing behind the Kurdish hunger strikers in their campaign. We need to see the international community supporting the Kurdish hunger strikers and the Kurdish peace process. And that's from Francie Moyle of Sinn Féin.
Bugün eylemimize dönüşümlü katılan Margaret Owen'e teşekkür ediyorum. Yine internasyonel dayanışmada bulunan dostlarımıza teşekkür ediyorum. Bu özellikle gelinen aşamanın çok kritik olduğunu biliyoruz. Zindanda birçok arkadaşımız ölümün eşiğinde. Bu sabah Osmaniye Kadın Kapalı Cezaevinden maalesef bir kaybımız daha söz konusu. Bu şu anlama geliyor. 87 yaşındaki Margaret Owen üst düzey bir balıstır olmasına rağmen bizi desteklemek için, Kürtlerle dayanışmak için bedenini açlık grevine yatırıyorsa bu özellikle Avrupa'da insan hakları kurumu olarak kendilerini ifade eden ama Kürtlerin baskı görmesine, işkence görmesine, bu açlık grevi sürecine sessiz kalan kurumlara yönelik atılmış bir tokattır. 87 yaşındaki bir insanın cevabı ancak böyle izah edilebilir. Yine 87 yaşındaki bir insan kendi bedenini bizimle açlığa yatırıyorsa tabii ki bu bizim için çok anlamlı, çok değerli. Aynı zamanda başta sessiz kalan Kürtler olmak üzere sessiz kalan her kesime yönelik bir çağrıdır, bir çığlıktır. Bu çığlığa ses verelim, eylemlerimize Avrupa'nın her yerinde destek olalım.